going on, folks? And here at Tool Dyno Works, I am back on the dyno today to show you guys where we are at with our 2025 Ninja 1100 that I've got here behind me and is clearly torn apart, and where we're at in terms of the performance we've now been able to achieve with this bike with a completely stock exhaust and a completely stock intake still installed. And just to recap for those of you that did or did not watch our last video where I kind of went over our initial impressions of this bike and the output in a completely stock configuration, it made just under 125 horsepower and about 77.5 pound-feet of torque to the tire on pump gas. And just by looking at those numbers and having me ride it and just sort of how it felt, before we could even get into the ECU, I knew there was going to be significant improvements that were possible with proper tuning. And I was right. Now that we've properly optimized the fueling of this bike, the ignition timing, and gone through the throttle-by-wire map, which really resulted in a complete overhaul of the throttle-by-wire system on this bike, there are significant improvements everywhere. We're making 5 more horsepower at peak, almost 10 more horsepower out there at 10,000 RPMs, and the curve is just smoother and stronger literally everywhere. Now obviously an extra 10 horsepower at the top end is great, 5 horsepower more peak to peak is great, the extra few foot-pounds of torque is great. But what I can't really illustrate in any sort of video or dyno graph is just how massively improved the bike is everywhere else but wide open throttle. Because when I first went over my initial impressions of this bike, you may or may not remember me saying that it felt like there was almost a surge as you'd roll on the throttle and then all of a sudden there was just a kind of boring spot and then it would kind of come to life. I assumed, again, before we'd been into the ECU and really seen what was going on in there, that was likely the transition from closed loop to the open loop mapping. Because in closed loop from the factory, these things run very lean, like nearly 15 to 1 AFR. And they were running down into like the high 11 to 1 AFR range at wide open throttle, which was just way too rich for optimal performance. Normally that transition from overly lean to overly rich will create that surging sensation. That actually wasn't the case. It was truly down to just how terrible the stock throttle-by-wire map for this bike really is. And here's what I'm talking about. This is the throttle-by-wire map for this bike in full power mode in 5th gear. But it doesn't really matter what gear we're looking at because every single gear is the same. There's no difference in the throttle-by-wire mapping from one gear to the next in full power mode. Now, what you see here on the left-hand side on the y-axis is engine RPM. What you see up here on the x-axis is requested throttle percentage. A lot of people get confused when they look at these maps, and they think that those numbers in the actual table itself represent the throttle that you are getting at that point. But that's not true and wouldn't make any sense. You're not getting 100% throttle at 0.8%, right as you're barely opening the throttle. That is a percentage of requested that you're getting. So say at 4.1% throttle, 3,000 RPMs, you're getting 56.1 of that 4.1% that you're requesting. Now, this table is a little hard to read if you're not very used to looking at the tables displayed in this way, but it's pretty obvious to see there's a lot of transition here. So say, for example, at 1.8% throttle, right as you begin to open the throttle, 4,000 RPMs, you're getting 100%. You're getting that 1.8% that you're asking for. But then you go over to 4.1%, so 2% more throttle, and you're only getting 60%. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's not a linear transition. And in fact, as you look down further, it gets more and more what I'll call retarded, not in the non-PC way, it's literally just a lesser value as you go, and then finally back over here to wide open throttle, you're starting to get near 100% or what I call 1-to-1 throttle by about 6,000 RPMs. But down here at the very bottom of the graph, which illustrates the very top end of the RPM range, you can see where they were really shutting down the throttle-by-wire system. So not only is the wide open throttle column just junk, I mean, you're not getting 100% throttle on this bike until, what is that over there? 5,000 RPMs, you can open the throttle plates much sooner to build bottom end torque. But all of the mapping in here and all of these transitions just made the bike feel kind of twitchy and surgy in a way that I'm really surprised that Kawasaki released to the public, because it's not dangerous by any means. It's just not good. It doesn't make a nice, smooth, and linear power transition, and it doesn't make the bike feel very connected to you as the rider because you're simply not getting what you're requesting the bike to do with your right hand. Now, obviously, I'm not going to ever show specific values or maps we've developed here for any platform that we provide tuning for because, well, I spend a lot of time developing throttle-by-wire mapping, both for regular retail customers like you folks and high-level teams in something like the Moto America Series, which is the highest national series we have here in this country to race in. So I'm just not ever going to give away my own IP and hard work. But I will show you a pretty good visual representation of what the throttle map looked like in the form of a 3D graph from the factory versus how it looks now that I've gone through and smoothed out and effectively overhauled the entire throttle-by-wire system, because it's a pretty obvious difference. This is the 3D representation of the stock throttle map, and as you can see, it does not look smooth and linear at all. There's huge peaks and valleys in here, and just overall does not look like a nice smooth transition. Even if you're not familiar with looking at these graphs, you can glance over at what I've developed and see that it is much smoother and more linear throughout the entire RPM range. This translates to a massively smoother and stronger feeling motorcycle with a much more predictable and responsive throttle versus this type of crap. But the throttle-by-wire and the feel mapping isn't really where what I consider the problems end with the stock ECU on this bike. The ignition timing mapping also sucked. There's another way to put it. It was just massively more retarded than it really needed to be. And again, not in the not PC, don't cancel me ultra liberal way. It's a lesser value than it needed to be. There can be much more ignition timing advanced in this bike than there was from the factory. You have to run premium pump gas in these anyway. I don't know why they decided to do this at Kawasaki. Again, I can only assume for emissions compliance, but a lot of the performance improvements of wide open throttle are also due to the improved ignition timing that we've developed here. For example, if we take a look at the stock ignition timing map, this is full power mode, cylinder 1. You can see all of a sudden where we've got timing values of wide open throttle of like 30, 31 degrees, 32, 30, 29, 28, and all of a sudden it drops down to like 24. That 4-degree step in timing is stupid. There is really just that continuous lull until all of a sudden you get down to like 9,500 RPMs where it starts climbing back up into like the high 20s again. That is dumb. You can increase the timing there. You can actually do a lot of manipulation in this table to further smooth out other bizarre timing dips in the power curve here. But again, I'm never actually going to show the specific timing values that we use in any of these tables because that is stuff that we've learned to develop over many, many years here and countless hours in this room. So just trust me when I say that this is far from optimal. And we're not just adding timing in some places. There's some spots in here where the timing is also far too advanced for really any kind of optimal performance. From the factory on these bikes, there's also a decel fuel cut, which is pretty much present in every modern motorcycle. We've disabled that. That is what allows us to control fueling on deceleration and also control sort of the twitchiness of that on-off throttle response, because you can treat the fuel injectors much more like a volume knob than a light switch, and the engine becomes much happier when you're rolling on and off the throttle. We've also gone ahead and lowered the cooling fan parameters. They are, again, just high on these bikes. The hotter they can burn, the cleaner they run. So again, for emissions compliance, they're set pretty high. We lowered those down. The fans will come on now about 204 degrees Fahrenheit instead of the 216, I think it was. I can't really do the Celsius conversions in my head from the factory. And there's also a top speed limiter in place on this bike, which you would never find unless you're at the very top of 6th gear, but it's there, and top speed limiters are stupid, so we removed that too. So overall, with the stock exhaust still in place and the stock intake still on the bike, it is now as good as it can possibly be, no ifs, ands, or buts. But we're not going to stop there. There is not a lot of aftermarket support listed yet for the Ninja 1100. However, I have a sneaking suspicion that the exhaust systems from the last generation Ninja 1000 are going to fit. So I rolled the dice and gambled and ordered a full Acura setup for this bike. Well, for the last generation bike. Now, I'm 99.9% certain that the slip-on is going to bolt on without any issues whatsoever. As far as I can tell, it is the exact same configuration as the last bike. And I'm 95% certain that the headers are also going to bolt right up. So coming very shortly, we'll also be building custom ECU mapping and showing the performance improvements of both a slip-on for these bikes and a full exhaust system as well. Because as I covered in our last video, the stock exhaust on this thing truly sucks. And I think getting rid of that system is going to be how we really uncork some more power out of this bike. If you take a look at the stock exhaust system, you just can't really expect it to flow more than 130 horsepower because it's really screwed up. And again, I covered this in the last video, but I will just show one more time. When you have collector designs that look like this, and then neck down at the O2 sensor, and then a resonator, and then another neck down, and then a muffler itself, and then the actual muffler sticking out the back here, this is just not a well-flowing setup whatsoever. None of the high-end aftermarket exhaust systems look like this, so we're going to get one on there. And those of you that just paid a little more attention there will also notice that there's two O2 sensors now on this thing. Motorcycles are finally starting to catch up with modern automotive technology. So there's actually post-cap monitors for these bikes, which means that if you are going to put a full system on them, you will 100%, no way around it, have to get some kind of tuning in the ECU, because that rear O2 sensor is going to all of a sudden see that the catalyst is not functioning whatsoever once it's no longer in place. So we'll address that with the software developers as well as we go ahead and get that full system installed. I'm hoping by probably the end of next week. But for now, our ECU mapping via our mail-in ECU flashing service will be up on our website for these new 25 Ninja 1100s for $349.99. If you'd like to go ahead and get your bike properly tuned and dialed in for pretty much any exhaust system that you can find for these bikes, because we'll be buying all of them to build tuning for, do not hesitate to go ahead and run over to twowheeldynoworks.com, purchase our mail-in ECU flashing service, send it out to us. Just be sure to follow the instructions and notes in bold on our site, and we will get it flashed and shipped back to you the very same day that we receive it. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us. Our email is support@twowheeldynoworks.com, and I personally answer any and all tech support questions every single day.